William Youmans is director of the Institute of Public Diplomacy and Global Communication at George Washington University, and he joins me now from Washington, D.C. How significant, would you say, is Netanyahu's speech to Congress and his meeting with Biden, given where we are in U.S. politics right now?
Well, Netanyahu addressing Congress is really nothing new. But I think that what was significant was a substantial portion of the Democratic lawmakers refused to attend his speech. I think in 2015, the last time he addressed Congress, only about 50 members of Congress didn't show up, in part because he was there to criticize President Obama over the Iran deal. But this time it was a significantly larger percentage, I think about half of the Democratic lawmakers. And this is an important sign of something that I think is happening domestically, which is not just specific to Netanyahu, but that unconditional support for Israel is increasingly becoming a partisan issue. That is, that the Republicans are becoming the party of unconditional support for Israel, and that there's more room for dissent within the Democratic party that's coming from the ground up. It's yet to really reflect, I think, in the larger politics of the party, but this sends a major message, I think. But, still the optics internationally are going to be that here's the United States uncritically and in a disgraceful kind of way welcoming someone who faces potential arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court and has been criticized widely as being behind the genocide in Gaza. And so for U.S.'s international standing, it's still going to be a very bad look.
And what about Vice President Kamala Harris? How significant is it that she chose not to attend Netanyahu's speech in Congress, citing a prior engagement, and instead chose to meet with him separately from his meeting with the president? And I wonder, do you buy that line that's being issued to journalists that says there's no daylight between the president and the VP on Israel? In other words, that they share the same view?
Well, I think that they're in a tricky position politically, and I think really this is fundamentally about domestic politics, because it's quite clear that Gaza, supporting Israel's actions in Gaza, had become a political liability for the Biden administration. We saw in the Michigan primary, for example, over 100,000 voters voting uncommitted during the primary, and that was in a state that Biden really won by a very slim margin. So if I was on Harris's electoral team, I'd say it's kind of important that you show that you're not exactly going to be like Biden. And we've seen some news reports, leaks, suggesting that there is some daylight. But when you look at the substance of policy discourse, the substance of Vice President's past statements, it's not clear to me that there is a whole lot of difference between the two. But I think that Vice President Kamala Harris is going to have a very different style of sort of talking about this. And this, somewhat distancing from Netanyahu, not a complete distancing, of course, I think is meant to sort of gesture towards the possibilities of differences without making any actually promises. So I'd be very surprised if she comes out in a very substantive way to take a different tack in terms of the approach to Israel as part of U.S. foreign policy.
We'll certainly have to wait and see on that one. Earlier, you mentioned that the Republicans had been seen as the party of unwavering support, if you like, for Israel. I wonder, obviously, Netanyahu meeting with Trump tomorrow. Can we say with any certainty where Trump actually stands on the Israel-Gaza conflict right now?
When Trump was the president, he was known as the most pro-Israel president of all time. And then the Biden administration came in and President Biden became known as the most pro-Israel president of all time. It's this kind of trajectory. Everything that Trump did, that was pro-Israel basically was continued or extended by the Biden administration. There really wasn't overturning any of the most controversial decisions, for example, moving the embassy to Jerusalem. And we saw the Biden administration go further in the visa waiver program for Israeli visitors to the United States. So I would not be surprised if the Trump administration just continues this sort of trajectory that has already been apparent to all of us looking from the outside.
All right, William Youmans from Washington, thank you so much for speaking to us on TRT World.